Hey, what's going on, Eric?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on today, man. I appreciate you coming on, and I'm excited to kind of hear your thoughts on some of this stuff.
I've been doing this stuff for quite a while, so my nonchalance is not because I'm not excited. It's like old hat. So I'm glad that you're excited.
Yeah, no, I'm super stoked about it, and yeah, I always enjoy learning about this stuff, and I'm sure that I'll pick up a lot of cool nuggets today. But yeah, going back to that, like, how long have you been doing copy?
I guess um, I've been doing it probably about 10 years. I got started by I was in a literal pit. After getting out of the army, I was like, I had learned how to blow stuff up and dig ditches, and neither of them are very lucrative civilian skills. So I, pun intended, came up in the elevator business when I got out. I had to get an apprenticeship with the International Union of Elevator Constructors, Stack and Steel and Sex Appeal, whatever. And yeah, I mean, you literally I was in an elevator pit and thinking like, man, I became a master elevator mechanic and with the full rights and privileges to go fix elevators in the middle of the night in Baltimore. And 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm scraping human filth out of a pit. And thinking maybe I should be doing something else with my life, or maybe I could do something different or better. So I have always been into fitness. So I went to my local CrossFit gym because that was all the rage about 10 years ago. And said, it costs you the same whether you got 6 people in here or 60. If you give me $100 for Facebook ads, I'll do my best and see what I can do for you. And I, as true entrepreneur fashion, sold something before I knew how to actually do anything with it. But I was actually pretty good. And I had read a bunch of marketing and sales books like Jay Abraham and Dan Kennedy and stuff like that. So I actually turned $100 into like $30,000 worth of sales and for that gym. And so I was like, well, maybe I should keep doing this and maybe I can get a piece of it. And wash, rinse, and repeated that same like ad set around the country and ended up building a pretty sizable Facebook ads business and focused on high end health facilities, tennis clubs, and CrossFit gyms and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that's made me a pretty decent copywriter because I'm spending other people's money through Facebook ads and then figured out how to monetize their email lists and figured out that lead would spend money on other things besides just fitness stuff. So I was able to figure out that my target profile was like a overweight 45-year-old COO of a you know a, of a hospital or whatever, and it's just like had like these other emotional hot buttons that I could push and sell her other stuff. And so um, it just took me down this road of entrepreneurship and what else can you get people to buy with the words on the screen. So yeah.
Nice, nice. And so, kind of, you started with Facebook ads, and I guess did you start kind of like branching out, maybe helping them with email stuff as well, or did that come a little bit later when you started moving into different
Yeah,
verticals?
once I was started getting once you I can get their phone to ring and their door to swing through paid advertising, then what do you do with all the leads that don't convert or like uh, they have these assets like that they would have 2,500 people on their customer list and don't communicate with them. So I'm like, before we spend money on advertising, why don't we try to just invite them to come back for some like why don't you develop a deeper relationship with them via media instead of having a one-on-one conversation. You can have like a really good conversation and broadcast it and started using email. So yeah, then I was like, oh, holy crap, you could actually make a whole lot more money on the back end with this email thing than trying to go chase new customers and just figuring out lifetime value and then return on relationship to not just be trying to hustle some new supplement or new offer all the time, but
Hmm.
actually getting people results. It's a big deal. So it didn't really matter what medium or what product I was selling. It was how do I get results for somebody and become like a preeminent problem solver for them. And yeah, so it didn't really like I went from fitness to financial, then went into fine art stuff, and now I've just kind of gone full circle where I don't even call myself a copywriter. I tell people I'm a cartoonist because I'm drawing on whiteboards for stuff because people don't believe like until they see it for themselves they don't know what's even possible. So um, I do enjoy drawing. So if I get someone to hire me to do the actual visualization of whatever and just draw cartoons and make fun of their problems and then pay me to solve them. So yeah, so it's, I guess I'm getting kind of the advice I would give to anybody else. Don't be as vague and playfully difficult as I'm being when you're just getting started. Pick a niche and go as deep as you possibly can to solve people's problems. And once you have a very good understanding of the powers and the results you can get for somebody, then you can go broad. So I wouldn't recommend a beginner try to do the things that I'm doing. I would recommend picking something small and getting very good and getting very confident with that single niche, and then you can go broad. So
yeah, no, I definitely kind of had the same experience when I was kind of doing my Facebook ads agency back in the day and trying to work with everyone, trying to figure out, what was the vertical I really wanted to work in, and then having to learn something new audience every time instead of really kind of like diving into that one audience and kind of getting that down.
Yep.
I guess as far as kind of like whenever you're getting started with kind of copywriting and email copywriting, was there kind of like a big shift that you made, like that kind of like turned everything on its head and it's like, oh, this is how you do it, like I didn't understand this before, but like it's so clear now.
Really writing how people actually talk. I get so many bad cold emails, cold LinkedIn pitches, or even when people are they'll come to me when they're already clients and like, here's like the copy I'm trying to send out, or here's what I've been sending. I'm like, do you actually talk like that? Nobody talks like this. Especially once I start working with some bigger B2B type companies who have very consultant type lingo. And I'm like, you don't talk to your friends that way. You wouldn't talk to your mom that way. Maybe you're trying to sound professional to other businesses, but nobody wants to read this crap. And that was the big profile. That was a big aha moment for me too. Like nobody wants to read your crap, like nobody, and they don't have to. If you don't make it fun for them and easy to understand what you're actually wanting, if you send somebody a very long email explaining all you're doing is creating more and more objections for them to just straight ignore you. And that's extremely frustrating when you spend all that time crafting this perfect message when nobody actually wants to hear it or responds to you. And it's just like emotionally crushing for these people, especially the more educated they are. The more letters they have on their name, they start getting really weird about getting rejected when they've spent so much time writing. And then I have like, a Dean Jackson type like 9-word email that gets a massive response from somebody, and it's just really funny when it's not that I'm unprofessional. It's just I don't have to put on an air of being overly smart or overly professional to get results for people. And it's freeing to keep it as simple as possible and not creating objections and trying to just create conversations with people instead of trying to go from like providing no context to trying to make a sale via one email, which is what I see a lot of people trying to do. Go from like they try to build a bridge too far. They try to like go from someone never understanding or hearing from them, or they've been on their list for a long time, and then they send this long email. And I'm a copywriter. I love long form copy, but it's often when you haven't talked to somebody for a long time, where they don't really know the problem that they're experiencing, and you're trying to persuade them via this long email, it's never going to get read. Like the most important part is that we all focus on subject lines, and the first 50 words are a critical important, but it's really that from line. Like, what is the relationship you have to that receiver? And if it's someone that you haven't seen for a long time, or they don't understand that you really can solve their problem, is that relationship is critical. So that's, I think I probably said 5 or 6 different things, which I would encourage you not to do. keeping it super simple. Give them one pill to swallow, and just try to engage them in a dialogue rather than trying to take them and go from 0 to sale via one email. So
that's big. That's really big. Yeah. And like you said, don't bore the pants off of them, like try and talk to them like we're talking here, just like friend to friend. Like that's what they're going to want to see in their email anyways, right? Is, friends and family, probably, right?
That's always my frame, is that I want them to feel like I'm putting my arm around them and walk behind the woodshed to have an an uncomfortable conversation, but make them feel safe that I'm the person that can be having it with them. And you can't go that, like, you can't just go from zero to like ripping the Band-Aid off. Like, you gotta, like, that's 2 or 3 moves ahead, but I know where I'm taking them before they are willing to go there with me. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. So you were mentioning earlier, like you love to do art, and you do incorporate a lot of that in your sales pages. Does that also come into play in your emails as well?
If I can, yeah. I mean, at scale, it doesn't work too well, especially because if you're going to use like fully beautiful HTML emails and it, like, putting in a JPEG that might get squashed and like formatting issues, that could be a problem. But what I recommend people do is like figure out who their dream 100 is, and that is very much more important to incorporate those images and videos and whatever. And it's not super scalable, but when you can look at the return on investment, which is the most important part, taking the extra time to create the marketing and sales collateral up front and sending it to them. I also like the same kind of images that I use are media agnostic. Like, they should work in email, they should work in direct mail, they should work in a Facebook ad, whatever. So the answer is yes, but yes, and maybe it's more the at scale. If you're, I mean, it kind of it depends, just like everything else in marketing. If you're sending out to like a giant list, I would not send out like, I wouldn't say that the image would always work better, because often if it looks all crunchy or an HTML email that doesn't get opened properly or whatever, I'd encourage you to go smaller before you try to scale anything out. And once you realize that you aim small and you miss small, and maybe you don't need to send out mass scale email. I think that has been my experience anyway. I have never really had to send out to a I've never had to send my cartoons out to like a 50,000 person list before. I've never had to get that far, because the results I was trying to sell high ticket stuff to just a handful of people was much, much smaller than some mass product 50,000 person list. So test is always the answer, but I certainly like receiving images, so I try to treat people the way I like to be treated. And if I'm trying to explain something complicated, using imagery to make it easier to understand. And I use cartoons because they're handmade, and you can tell that it's not some computer generated vector image. It's someone like took the time to draw it out and like draw people into the image. They'll actually look at it and see, in this world of hyperconnectivity and like computer generated everything, to seeing like a hand drawn image speaks louder than words. And that's what cartoons are really, they're supposed to do, capture emotion and what the things that are being said and not said, and like the energy between it. So I think that's why I've had success using them, because I'm personalizing them and showing my personality through them. So I'm a big fan, and I'd encourage any copywriter to figure out how to incorporate personality in their copy, but also using imagery. You don't have to become a cartoonist, but I think it's a noble. That I mean, I was, of course, I'm going to be biased because it's what I do, but I don't see a lot of people, like the copywriters. Like, there's so much to learn within copy, but then to go in and it's speaking in images too is it's harder, but it's also worth it. It makes me a better copywriter too. Using it allows me to use simple images and short copy to make the sale, and the sale being attention is most important right now anyway. So getting the attention and people being understood is more important than trying to make $1 off of the first email, or trying to get a return on the return on design. It is still inconclusive, but McKinsey says that it exists. Like, there's an article I could send you that the design focused companies are more profitable, but I haven't done the data myself to see it's tested. But I know anecdotally I get a response, so that's what the most important part is. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it seems like it kind of like increases clarity on whatever the offer is. And anytime you can do that in your copy, you're coming ahead, I guess. So do you use like a whack? Are they called like Wacom tab or
Well,
Wacom or something like
yeah,
that?
I use a iPad Pro with a pencil. You could use a whiteboard. You could use a a sticky note with a Sharpie. It doesn't
Yeah,
really.
I guess you just take a picture
Uh,
with your phone, right?
yeah, exactly. Um, it really, people are always asking me whenever when I do my presentations, I don't use any slides. I just draw right on my whiteboard on my iPad, and I can't get 5 minutes in my presentation without the first question being, how are you drawing on the screen? Like it becomes such a technical question. I'm like, dude, you can do it on butcher paper or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's not even about the quality of the art. It's the idea that I'm conveying, and also the fact that I'm literally grabbing you by the eyeballs and drawing you in. Like you can't look away. The things, it's a moving target. Like I got you, and that's part of the whole shtick is keeping your attention longer. You don't know what I'm like. I don't even have to be a good artist. That's what I'm
Yeah.
telling. Like it's not about how good or that you can't draw a straight line or whatever. It's involving somebody in the thing, and ultimately people are programmed to pay attention to their teachers like from a very early age. Like they're if you're teaching them something, they're not going to look away. They're going to sit there and be good little students and pay attention to you. But if you've got this super polished uh, PowerPoint slide, nobody wants to it goes right back to like, oh, this is another corporate. They're trying to sell me something. I don't want
Yeah.
like I don't care about this. I've seen this or whatever. Um, so that's like a neatness. It's a Gary Halbert thing. Like neatness rejects involvement. So actually, like I'm actually a really good artist, and I try to dumb it down as much as possible because it could be intimidating to people. So yeah,
Kind of like like really good writers should kind of try and dumb their writing down to reach
I
the
don't want
widest
to.
audience, you know?
I don't want them to comment on how good my art is or how good my writing is. I just want them to make it seem like just they can't look up like that we're just having a normal conversation or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and so it probably works really well for like say VSLs and uh, webinars and stuff like that. Just like we are saying, like you were saying earlier, like instead of just being boring old PowerPoint stuff, it's going to keep people's attention for longer and probably connect with them more.
And ultimately these images burn themselves into people's minds, and they can't like someone like is going to go shopping for some other kind of offer. They might go see every like all the other offers are just those long boring VSL PowerPoint slides. Like mine are ones with the images that they can't get out of their head,
Mm-hmm.
so they can't get the product that they're looking for anywhere else. So it forces you to understand the product more in order to communicate it with images, but also that they have that image straight burned inside their head. So yeah.
Cool, I love that, man. Yeah, I guess so. Going back to kind of email stuff, one thing I find a lot of people have trouble with is coming up with ideas like for emails on what to write about. Do you have like kind of any tricks of the trade or just kind of like things you always go back to for like finding out what kind of creative to write about, I guess?
I love consequences. It's the dog trainer in me.
Yeah.
Problems have consequences, and there are countless problems that you can dwell on, but ultimately, we all know we have problems, but then they become real once you dimensionalize them with the consequences of not solving that problem. So when you really understand your customer and the problems that they have, you can articulate the consequences of those problems, and that's unlimited amount of emails, especially if you're only going to if you're going to focus on one big idea at a time. Like all there's already the 10 most common objections to any one of your any one offer, like uh, money, time. I don't believe that I could do it. Maybe it works for the other person, but it doesn't work for me. But there's you can list out the 10, maybe 15 max objections that anybody could have. Um, those are 10 or 15 emails, and then the consequences of not solving that problem. There's another 10 or 15 emails.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a month's worth of email content, and that's if you're mailing every single day. And if you actually committed to mailing every single day, you're going to continue to you're going to get feedback from people on what's resonating most with them, and you're going to get a deeper appreciation for their problem, and it's going to continue to evolve. So yeah, I mean, if you actually wrote a daily email of consequences for each one of those objections, you you would be hard pressed not to come up with more after you actually committed to writing those first 10, 15 that beget another 10 or 15. And that's going to give you a deeper appreciation to then produce the next month's worth of content. And if you can't sell somebody on that, after 2 months of daily emails, maybe you don't really have a worthwhile offer at that point. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Yeah. Consequences. That's really good. You could also, I guess, incorporate kind of the testimonials into that as well, right?
Yeah. There's the two resources I would point you towards. Sean D'Souza's brain audit. He's got 7 bags or whatever the problem agitate solve. Essentially, you got the problem, consequences, the category of the solution. You've got all the objections. You've got all kinds of testimonials. You can turn those testimonials into like full color case studies. You've got the uniqueness for what makes your offer special. You've got risk reversal. So yeah, I mean, that's 7 different types of emails right there again. And then there's a book called They Ask You Answer, and he's got all the different ideas on how you bring up the objection and turn it into valuable content that makes you the authority in any subject. And so that's why it's important not to try to be a generalist, go super deep on one thing, because there's so much content to produce around that one idea that you can't be like, there's so much content you need to produce to really prop up that idea that you are the best at it, that you don't have time to be writing all this other stuff about all these other different niches or whatever, that there's shiny object BS that we chase as we're getting started in this game, or that's available to us. So yeah.
Nice, dude. That's great. Yeah. I just got one more question about email is like, do you have any kind of like quick wins that you found that a lot of people that maybe are just getting started writing email, or that have been doing for a while, are kind of getting stuck? Like, what are some quick wins that they could add to their email sequences, to their broadcast, that could kind of get them more conversions, I guess?
Yeah. There's Dean Jackson's a great email copywriter. His 9-word email, he's got a bunch of articles about it. It's at the end, his idea is the more cheese, less whiskers. Leading with, instead of trying to sell somebody something, asking them what they actually want. His example that, again, I'm going to, he is, I could claim this as my own, but I mean, like, for a restaurant, for example, you could, instead of trying to sell somebody restaurant marketing ideas, because that's what I'm dealing with Groupon right now. Instead of trying to sell them restaurant marketing ideas, and trying to get a restaurant who's been shut down because of the pandemic and all this kind of stuff, do you do birthdays instead of, hey, do you want to buy advertising on Groupon? It's a big difference, where the person who's receiving that email can tell that you're trying to sell them, or are they being open to purchasing from you? It's like, if you lead with, as a chess master, of like, if I came to you with buy my advertising thing, and you're like, my restaurant shut down, I'm not buying any advertising, this is ridiculous, I'm having a hard, like, I don't know how I'm going to feed myself, let alone my employees. Versus if I came to you with like, hey, do you do birthdays, as in like, can I come there and do my birthday, kind of thing. So if you flip it around to selling somebody what they actually want, rather than trying to sell them what you've got, instead of trying to sell them like your shtick, it gets past the gatekeeper much more often. So, so that strategy, keeping it short, conversational, expecting a reply, that's another D. Jackson email copywriting thing, as well as just keeping it super simple. Just all you're trying to do is have a dialogue. Email is a fantastic medium for creating a connection, but I use email to generate a conversation, not try to make a sale via like cold email, or even trying to get a referral out of the email. I'm using the email to drive to a phone call or a video or a webinar or whatever. I'm using it to change the channel. So that's what I think. There's plenty of strategies that just ripped off. Yeah.
No, that's great. So as far as like going back to the birthday thing, and so like, So this would be like if you're doing kind of cold email, I guess, for outreach, you would say, do you do birthdays? Does that mean like that would get a conversation started where they're like, what, do you want to have your birthday here? Or would it,
Yeah, right.
and then you would go into saying how you, no, I don't actually yet. My birthday's too far away, but I do help set up birthday marketing.
That would be how that's how a lot of people would approach it. You would again try to get them to go, so do you do birthdays? They say yes. How many are going to be in your party? It's like, well, actually, I have. Sorry. Can you handle more than one birthday, or can you handle like 15 birthdays this month? And they're like, well, what do you, probably. It's like, so, or no, I can't because I'd be maxed out. I could only handle 10 birthdays this month or whatever. So you try to get them, try to go 2 or 3 cheese. You're trying to feed them more of what they want, that you're a bigger prize, rather than just trying to say like, hey, I'm trying to sell you birthday marketing services.
Yeah. Cool. It totally makes sense, man.
Or the bait and switch where then they just hate you and curse you out.
But at least you got the conversation started.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah. And especially like you said, kind of keeping it simple. That's one of the things I've found is just like, don't overcomplicate it. Try and have, one objective if possible, and, don't get them confused or make them want to click away, whatever. But I love that, man. That's really good. Man, this has been so helpful, and I really appreciate you being on today and talking about this stuff. And if anyone like wants to kind of find out more about what you're working on or wants to connect with you in any way, like how can we do that? I can add some links below this to anything you'd like. Yeah.
I try to post a daily doodle on my Instagram at Eric.Bakey. I don't do a lot of email right now because I'm working with very reassuringly expensive clients that have been referral only generated. So I'm really it's not too easy to hire me. So I don't like mass market to a bunch of young copywriters, because every time I've done that, all it does is I very rarely teach anything, because that's really not my it's not really my MO. But yeah, they can follow me on Instagram, and when I make an offer, it'll be from ericbakey.com. I mean, they can sign up for an email list and get some goodies, but I don't regularly email. I'm kind of on the back end of some bigger businesses emailing on their behalf. So cool. I spend more money. It's fun when you can have a force multiplying influence impact on people through people who already have built massive platforms, rather than just my little personal site. But I post cartoons and lessons learned as often as I can, and sometimes I do webinars. But I'm having a lot of fun pulling the strings behind some massive businesses. So it's a lot of fun.
Sweet. That is super fun. Yeah. So y'all, I definitely suggest following his Instagram, and seeing the doodles that he's doing. They're really entertaining, and it can show you kind of like some ideas of things you can start doing for your own marketing. And like I said, man, I really appreciate you doing this, and it's been super helpful.